In a world divided by power, money, and race, every once in a while, a story rises that reminds us of what humanity truly stands for. A story not of wealth, not of privilege, but of purpose. Welcome back to Mystery in the Dark, where real stories unfold like cinematic mysteries. Don't forget to subscribe, because tonight, we uncover the untold rise of the man who redefined power. This story begins in Kampala, Uganda, in 1991, the year when Africa was rebuilding from decades of colonial scars. There, in a modest home filled with books, hope, and conversation, a child was born who would one day rewrite the political script of America. His name, Zohran Mamdani. Zohran's father, Mahmoud Mamdani, was a respected academic, a thinker who dedicated his life to studying inequality and the aftermath of imperialism. His mother, Mira Nair, was already a rising icon, a filmmaker who would soon change Indian cinema with movies like Salam Bombay and Monsoon Wedding. Together, they were a family of intellect, art, and resistance. But destiny had other plans. When Zohran was still a child, his parents moved to New York City, hoping to give him the education and opportunity that East Africa couldn't promise. They settled in Queens, the beating heart of immigrant America, where 160 languages could be heard in a single subway ride. To many, Queens was chaotic. But to the Mamdani family, it was home. Alive, diverse, and full of stories. For young Zohran, however, the move was confusing. He was too Indian for Americans, too American for Indians, and too privileged to fully belong to the struggling immigrant crowd. This identity crisis would later become the foundation of his political awakening. At school, Zohran was quiet, more of an observer than a talker. He watched how children from immigrant families were often made to feel less American. He saw how some parents worked 2 or 3 jobs just to afford rent, how kids skipped college to help their families survive. This environment shaped him. While many kids dreamed of fame or fortune, Zohran's curiosity grew around why society was so unequal. His father's books on economics and history became his bedtime stories. He would later recall, "I was never interested in being powerful. I wanted to understand why power was so unevenly shared." While his father shaped his mind, his mother shaped his heart. Mira Nair often took him to her film sets, where art met real life. She showed him how storytelling could expose truth, how cinema could speak against injustice. In those early days, Zohran learned that power doesn't just exist in politics, it exists in who tells the story. That realization would follow him for life. As Zohran entered his teenage years, he began to feel the pressure of 2 worlds. His friends in school talked about Ivy League colleges, sports, and parties. But at home, the conversation was about justice, poverty, and identity. He tried to fit into both, writing poetry, performing at open mics, even dabbling in hip-hop and spoken word. Each performance was raw, about belonging, discrimination, and the immigrant struggle. Audiences connected instantly. They saw honesty in his words. Through these performances, he discovered the power of voice, not as entertainment, but as activism. He started volunteering at community centers, helping low-income families fill government forms, translating for South Asian elders who couldn't speak English. That was his first taste of what it meant to serve. In college, Zohran studied economics and history, but what he saw outside classrooms mattered more. The 2008 financial crisis had crushed working-class families in New York. He saw neighbors lose homes, small shops shut down, and the gap between rich and poor widen beyond repair. He once said in an interview, It's not that people didn't work hard enough. It's that the system was built to make sure their hard work never paid off. This was the moment the activist inside him began to form. Before stepping into politics, Zohran tried multiple paths. He worked briefly as a housing counselor, where he witnessed evictions firsthand. Single mothers thrown out, elderly men crying outside locked doors. He also joined a criminal justice nonprofit, helping reintegrate people released from prison. But these roles frustrated him. He wanted to change the system, not just patch its wounds. One night, he wrote in his journal, "If laws can break lives, then maybe laws can also rebuild them." That sentence became his political calling. Over the next few years, Zohran immersed himself in grassroots activism. He organized food drives, led housing protests, and became a familiar face at rallies. He was not the loudest voice, but the most consistent. People began to notice his calm determination. He wasn't a man of slogans, he was a man of solutions. By 2019, he had built trust in his community. Neighbors started calling him the boy who listens. He didn't yet know it, but these same people would one day elect him to power. In late 2019, during a housing protest outside a luxury development project, Zohran stood before a line of police officers, holding a sign that read, "Homes are not commodities." The image went viral. Journalists began to ask, "Who is this man?" Local leaders approached him to run for state assembly. At first, he refused. He thought politics was dirty, a space for liars and opportunists. But then he remembered his father's words, "If you stay out of politics, the wrong people will fill it." That night, Zohran decided to enter the very system he once despised. That was the beginning. From the warmth of Kampala to the cold streets of Queens, Zohran's story was no longer just about survival. It was about transformation. The journey of a child of immigrants who dared to believe that ordinary people can change extraordinary systems. The story of Zohran Mamdani doesn't stop at the doorsteps of his immigrant family's small apartment. It begins to unfold in the restless energy of a young man who saw two worlds colliding: the comfort of privilege through his mother's success, and the silent struggle of the working class in the streets around him. He grew up surrounded by two realities. Inside, a world of education, literature, and art. Outside, a world of rent struggles, racism, and immigrant exhaustion. This contrast shaped him. It forced him to ask, what does justice really mean? At school, Zohran wasn't just another bright student. He was the kind who asked difficult questions, the kind teachers sometimes avoided because his questions carried truth sharper than comfort. By the time he entered Bowdoin College, he had already begun forming his moral compass. But even there, among the ivy-covered walls and calm academias, he felt a disconnection, a sense that privilege insulated him from real pain. He studied economics, trying to understand how systems work, how money shapes people's lives. But the deeper he went, the clearer it became. The system wasn't built for everyone. During his college years, he volunteered in housing rights movements, taught kids from low-income families, and joined rallies supporting immigrant workers. He began seeing the world not from textbooks, but from the eyes of those struggling to afford rent in New York. The fire within had started to burn. By 2015, as political tension rose across America, with police brutality, inequality, and Islamophobia making headlines, Zohran couldn't stay silent anymore. He started speaking at small gatherings, writing short essays online, and connecting with grassroots organizations fighting for tenants' rights. His voice, though young, carried sincerity. People began noticing, not because he had power, but because he understood pain. He wasn't a celebrity politician. He was the neighbor who cared. As the years passed, his activism deepened. He stood beside taxi drivers, fighting against unfair regulations, defended Muslim communities targeted after political rhetoric, and constantly reminded people that justice isn't charity, it's a right. Then came a turning point. In 2018, when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shook the political world by winning her seat against a powerful establishment Democrat, it inspired countless young activists, including Zohran. He realized something profound. If change can happen in one district, it can happen anywhere. Zohran made a decision that would alter his life forever. To run for office, not to gain fame, not to gain wealth, but to give a voice to the voiceless. People around him were skeptical. Politics? You're too young, too idealistic, they said. But he replied calmly, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? That was the spirit of the new generation. Educated, empathetic, and fearless. He began walking through the streets of Astoria, talking to shop owners, immigrant families, and taxi drivers. He didn't talk at them. He listened to them. In those conversations, he discovered what most politicians never hear: the fear of losing homes, the exhaustion of working 14 hours a day, and the hopelessness that the system will never change. Every story he heard became a part of his purpose. Every handshake added weight to his promise. By the end of 2019, Zohran Mamdani wasn't just an activist anymore. He had become a movement. He filed his nomination for New York State Assembly. It was the first step from the streets to the system. But the real war had only just begun. Queens, New York, a place of dreams and desperation. The immigrant capital of America, where every language, every color, and every struggle meets in one chaotic heartbeat. It was here that Zohran Mamdani decided to take his stand. To fight not just for votes, but for a new vision of politics. The year was 2020. The political climate in America was shifting. Big money had its claws deep in every election. From billionaires funding campaigns to corporations controlling narratives, the system was designed to keep outsiders out. And Zohran, he was the ultimate outsider. A Muslim, an immigrant's son, a socialist, and a man who dared to speak against corporate greed. When he announced his candidacy for the New York State Assembly, District 36, the power elite laughed. Another idealist kid trying to play politics, they said. But what they didn't realize was that this time the ground was shifting. The people of Astoria, the workers, taxi drivers, small shopkeepers, they were done being ignored. From the very beginning, his campaign was unlike any other. No fancy offices, no millionaire donors, no corporate sponsorships, just volunteers, students, mothers, immigrants, all knocking on doors, handing out leaflets, talking to neighbors, spreading one message: this time we fight for us. And that scared the establishment. Because money can't buy authenticity, and Zohran had it in abundance. Soon, news started spreading. A young socialist from Queens challenging the old guard. His speeches went viral on social media. He didn't shout, he didn't insult, he spoke with reason and pain and hope. But as his popularity grew, so did the resistance. Local media outlets, quietly funded by big donors, began discrediting him. They called him too radical, anti-business, and unrealistic. Behind the scenes, powerful businessmen, including investors linked to Elon Musk's lobby groups and political donors connected with Donald Trump's networks, started pouring money into campaigns to stop him. Millions of dollars began flowing into the hands of his opponents. Billboards appeared overnight. Ads on TV spoke of dangerous socialism. Anonymous flyers spread fear, saying Zohran wanted to take away your jobs and raise your taxes. It was a full-blown propaganda war. But what those billionaires didn't understand was that Zohran's strength wasn't money. It was people. He kept walking the streets of Astoria. Every night, he'd knock on doors, listen to stories, and remind people, your voice matters more than their money. His campaign became a movement, a fusion of hope and defiance. From college students to old taxi drivers, from South Asian families to Latin American workers, everyone stood behind him. There were nights when he barely slept, days when donations ran out, times when the media ignored his rallies. But each setback made him stronger. He used humor, heart, and honesty to fight back. In one of his most famous interviews, he said, "They have money. We have the truth, and the truth doesn't need a sponsor." The election day finally arrived. The streets of Queens were alive. Lines outside polling stations stretched for blocks. People wore masks. It was the height of the pandemic, but their eyes shone with determination. When the first results came in, his team held their breath. The incumbent had money, media, and machinery, but Zohran had belief. And as the night went on, something unbelievable happened. He started winning. Precinct after precinct turned in his favor. By midnight, it was clear. The establishment had fallen. Zohran Mamdani, the son of immigrants, the activist, the dreamer, had done the impossible. He defeated a well-funded political dynasty without taking a single dollar from corporations. That night, when he addressed the crowd, his voice trembled. Not with fear, but gratitude. He said, "This victory isn't mine. It's yours. It's for every worker who felt invisible, for every immigrant who was told they don't belong. Today, we've proven, we do." The crowd erupted in cheers. Tears, chants, laughter. Queens had made history. But the war was not over. When you challenge power, power strikes back. November 5th, 2025. The night was cold, but the city felt alive. For months, New Yorkers had argued, shouted, and hoped. And now, it all came down to this one night. In the dimly lit campaign headquarters in Queens, Zohran Mamdani sat surrounded by volunteers. Phones buzzed with updates. The big screen flashed the first precincts. The race for mayor of New York City had finally begun to reveal its fate. The competition was fierce. On one side, Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, backed by establishment power, old networks, and millions in big donor money. On another side, Curtis Sliwa, the Republican challenger, fiery, loud, promising law and order. And against both of them stood Zohran Mamdani, a man of immigrant roots, a socialist, a dreamer, running a campaign built not on money, but on people. This was more than an election. It was a battle between money and movement, between status quo and change. Reports later revealed that more than $20 million were spent by New York's wealthiest businessmen to defeat Mamdani. Michael Bloomberg, Bill Ackman, Ronald Lauder, and several billionaire donors poured money into independent groups to boost Cuomo's campaign and spread fear about Mamdani's progressive policies. Even Elon Musk and Donald Trump, though they didn't officially donate, tweeted and spoke openly against him, warning that Mamdani would destroy business in New York. But money couldn't buy conviction. Because Mamdani had something no billionaire could purchase: trust. By sunset, the voting lines were massive. Turnout shattered all expectations. Over 2 million people cast their votes, the highest in decades. Young voters, first-timers, and working-class New Yorkers flooded polling stations across the 5 boroughs. At 9 p.m., the first results rolled in. Cuomo led by a narrow margin. But then Brooklyn started reporting. Then Queens. And slowly, the map began to turn blue for Mamdani. When the final results flashed on every screen across the city, it was official. Zohran Mamdani, 1,036,051 votes, 50.4%. Andrew Cuomo, 854,995 votes, 41.6%. Curtis Sliwa, 146,137 votes, 7.1%. A historic victory, over 1 million votes. It wasn't even close. New York had chosen change. Behind those numbers lay months of warfare, not with guns, but with money and media. Reports later showed corporate lobbies connected to Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and major real estate developers had poured over $210 million into ads and PACs against Mamdani. Yet their barrage failed. Because on the streets of Queens, in the subways of Brooklyn, and the community centers of the Bronx, ordinary New Yorkers were writing a different story. A story of belief. At 11:42 p.m., Zohran stepped onto the stage at Astoria Park. Rain dripped from his coat, crowds chanted his name. He looked around and said softly, "My mother came here from Uganda with a bag of books. She told me, never forget the power of an idea. Tonight, New York proved that an idea can beat $1 billion. The crowd roared. Fireworks lit the skyline. For the first time in history, New York had a South Asian, Muslim-born mayor, and one who called himself a democratic socialist. But for Zohran, this wasn't a finish line. It was the beginning of a new battle against rising rents, homelessness, and corporate control over public life. He was once a boy who struggled to pay college loans. Now, he holds the keys to America's largest city, but power tests everyone, and New York. It forgets fast. What comes next for Zohran Mamdani? Will his revolution survive the system he just entered? Or will New York's old machine swallow another dreamer? Only time will tell. From the streets of Queens to the heart of power, one man has defied the billionaires, but the mystery of power has just begun. This is the rise of Zohran Mamdani. Thank you for watching. For more real stories that change the world, stay with us and click the subscribe button.